Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Tuesday the 25th of July. So before we look at the markets, just a quick look at what events are occurring today. It's just not a lot is the answer. So Tuesday we've got the IFO Business Climate at 9 a.m. We sometimes get a bit of a blip around that, particularly in the current situation. US consumer confidence at 3, so it leaves us pretty open for the rest of the day there, and manufacturing index at 3 as well. So there's the potential, certainly a potential blip at 9 o'clock and possibly at 3. Nothing to be significantly worried about there today, and of course the big picture still hangs in. Well, for Australia it's their inflation tomorrow morning, and then their currency will be affected by this Fed report at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. Don't expect new home sales to have much impact tomorrow either. But so we're really working towards these days, the Fed and then the ECB meeting and press conference there. Probably the most important expectation from the meeting is a 0.5% increase, 0.25% increase, even if I can find where is it? There it is, 0.25% increase there at 1:15 on Thursday. But I know I'm looking ahead a bit here, but currencies are already reacting, and well, some are plateauing out somewhat or range bound. So we've got to trade carefully leading into this sort of big news. There are some opportunities, I think, but I'll show you what I found this morning. Euro, we'll just run through the majors, of course, before I do that. The euro and the pound I'm still favouring over most currencies. I was doing my analysis yesterday morning, my bigger term sentiment analysis, and both of them are much more favoured than most currencies. But there was a clear sign of the US dollar being not favoured, and lots of the currencies that had been previously being sold are sort of starting to turn around. There were some big swings. Morning, Mike. So let's have a look at the markets anyway now, starting off with the euro dollar here. So we've seen it sold off yesterday. Bad news yesterday on the data there that was released in the morning, and it was all really one plop there. It's that 6 o'clock bar on the 4 hourlies here. There we go. And it was all 1/2 bars and it was over, and that was it. For me, I was looking at it, it could have potentially been tradable, but it wasn't. It happened too quickly, and realistically I'd have been slipped quite a bit. There was an old trade that I used to trade on it that was setting up, but as I say, wasn't happening for me. Now looking at the euro at the moment, short term, we've got scope for it to run into its pivot and reverse. So looking at that at this stage, so it sits on my list there, and now I'm sort of looking at it reversing to the downside, but that's the way it seems to be kept going, leading into this data. At some point, yes, I'd like to be a buyer, but maybe against other pairs. Pound US dollar, again, one tracking down there. Let's just go from the bigger picture. It's been tracking down for a number of days now. Lower highs, lower lows. You notice that the retracements are becoming more frequent in the structure. So we had the original sell-off there, retracement, and then quite a decent sell-off. Then it's sort of come up, sold, come up, sold, but they're coming up more frequently. This is sometimes a sign of a market that might be on the change of or turn, should I say. Short term, I would still look at selling it into its weekly pivot, but the bigger picture, it might be more positive for it. US dollar yen, now the yen continues to soften. Really, it's marginal. It's hardly. I mean, yesterday it barely did anything, to be fair, but looking at it, it's the softest or second softest currency this morning, actually. It's close to, it's fighting for that softness, but it's not really going anywhere too major, just slow. and consolidated really. I was asked about currency pairs and trading different pairs, euro yen or dollar yen. Euro yen every day compared to the way this goes, especially in the mornings for us, because we've got more happening with the euro generally. But anyway, nothing really there. I mean, there's the big overall flaggy sort of pattern, there you go, that you can see there, that's trying to break, and we could at some stage see it continue there. Aussie dollar, get the Aussie dollar, there we go. So the Aussie dollar having a bit of a recovery. Everything else is actually looking a little bit more like it's on the turn here, but hasn't confirmed anything, so it's not made me any more positive on it at the moment. Hasn't given us a higher low at this stage. It's actually given us a lower high and lower lows that were sitting in there, so I'm more on the bearish side of things. Don't see a setup there at the moment. The US dollar CAD, now this is one that's the US dollar's losing against the CAD largely. Now we saw this yesterday morning. I think it was yesterday morning. Where is it now? It's last week, wasn't it? Big pardon. There we go. Yesterday morning, and well, it did. Oh, that was yesterday afternoon in the end. Big pardon. Just looking at where we was sitting there, it was in the afternoon. In the morning it started to enough. Actually it did continue through in the end, the US dollar CAD, and from the little pattern it's doing at the moment, if it breaks these lows we could just see a continuation, but maybe back to these prior lows here or here further down. There you go, you can see it here a little clearer. Now, of course, I say of course, but having seen a retrace here, we probably get some divergence for this move, but it still looks pretty solid on the downside there. Something to look at maybe post 8 o'clock or even this afternoon is more solid. New Zealand dollar, not really doing too much. It's just sort of catching a bit of the bid side. Again, with this, I was looking at it. Last week I was looking at it there with a flag, and this week looking at similar with the I was looking at the bear flag on the owlies yesterday. Just didn't happen, just didn't trigger for me, and just pipped below the pivot there. Again, looking at currencies to trade, well, this wasn't one, but I was also looking at was it the New Zealand CAD? It was New Zealand CAD. Similar picture, but it went and hit the bottoms. So it did actually phase in there, but the New Zealand dollar not massively soft. So this is really picking your fight. If you're looking at what's going on, look across the currency against some of its peers, and you might find a weaker, in this case, target. Dollar Swissy put a lower high in this shorter time frame. Just looking at the bigger time frame, it has been coming up, but the dollar is off this morning, so we're seeing the effect of it here. As I said before, as much as there's a lot of weight behind the Swissy, the US dollar compared to the Swissy here. Swissy is continuing to work its way, or the US dollars continue to work its way, is stronger against the pairs, so I'd believe that it's just too much to try and trade there. But there are other Swissy pairs that might look better. Euro yen this morning, well, I was looking at between the euro yen and the pound yen. Euro yen just that little bit softer. We've got the same sort of pattern across here. Has done a little higher low at this point. Still below its daily pivot. Maybe if it could push up there, it could get back into this bigger trend that was going on there. I was also looking at the pound yen, and you got the same sort of pattern. The only difference is this is broken its pivot already and is getting a bit of a shove on. Now, as I said that, of course, it's sold immediately the new hour happens, but you look at how many times that happens. Now, it might be that we get a chance at some point on this one. Similar sort of movements, perhaps not as the euro's pushed up for longer beforehand, then done its retrace. The pound struggled a little bit more with it, but maybe still has some scope. Euro pound just really observation as anything else. I don't often trade this, it's more of a swing I would do. Euro is slipping back against the pound though this week so far. Well, say this week, it started last week, the damage, and yesterday's data didn't help things, but saying that the pound didn't fly either. But it's already quite a way down there. It's close to the bottoms here. This could just carry on rolling over in shape. You need to look at this bigger picture and see, well, potentially it's got support off the 50, but if it could continue the momentum, the S1 would look attractive. Okay, other euro pairs I look at, EURCAD has got scope to roll over here this morning. The pound CAD was looking similarish, yeah, similarish, but a little bit stronger. So the EURCAD looking just that tad weaker out of the two of them, and certainly I love when it's running in its trends, it can be quite good. So here's some potential for this morning. It's just flatlining at the moment, but there's scope for a continuation on that. The CAD is sitting up there against some of the majors, but not all the majors. It's not having its way completely. Other pairs I was looking at this morning, where CAD yen's already gone, it's gone a little bit further. It was looking good across the time frames here. We've had some nice moves here. It's not something I trade a lot, but it's just looking at a decent pattern. If you can get if you've got a decent spread and not silly spreads, it is, well, it's maybe already gone a bit too far. I'd have to consider how to get into that this morning rather than just buying. It's too close to a top just to buy, and it may be that I've just missed a opportunity. What else was I looking at there? The dollar yen, Swissy yen even. It's really just breaking this large descending trend, just about, but maybe not. Okay, finally the New Zealand dollar CAD. I do pick on this at times. As I said yesterday, it rolled over here. Maybe it's got scope to roll back down towards its S1 today, and maybe more. But if a wider spread, so unless we've got some decent points there, I want something more than just those lows. Ideally, I want a bit more of this continuation. It's been running down nicely, and well, has scope. It is into its monthly pivot where it sits at the moment, so it needs to really break below that to give it a chance. Right, that's pretty much it on the currencies. It's a quick flick through the gold and oil and the main indices. So looking at gold then, yesterday continued. It's got sort of a bull flag in the lower time frames kicking through here. It broken yesterday, Friday it broke that trend line and looked a little bit soft. If it could break the top of the flag pattern here, maybe it's got some scope to run up. Otherwise, if it stays down here, well, it stays down here. Looks, in fact, on the hourlies here with the lower highs, lower lows, it actually looks like a short candidate. Now, with my analysis on that, from looking at the sentiment, whatever else, and gold is really strong. However, technically, it's not there, so we can't afford to be going and buying things when it's still heading southbound at the moment. However, if it breaks that, breaks the highs here, starts pushing up, gives us higher lows, then there is the scope for the play of the flag. But we've got to bear in mind we've got data tomorrow, big data tomorrow, which could completely squash it. Could also completely help it, but is it worth it? Oil, well, we saw oil pushing up again yesterday. Keep seeing it pushing up. It's being in it at the right time is the thing here. It ran at 10 o'clock there. Didn't expect it to go again later on, but just after 2 there, it pushed up and surged once again. But we'll see how it sets off this morning. We could see a run. If it pushes up towards its R1 before it touches a pivot and gets up there later, we could see it running up towards its R2 again. Actually, it hit the R3 yesterday, but still looking, and I'm still bullish on that, but mainly day trading it. I should be probably just swinging it. Okay, looking at equity markets for those interested, then the CSI 300s are looking across around the world a little bit here. Massive gap up there actually on the CSI 300. I hadn't caught the news to see what's driven that. I still remain relatively bearish on this, but obviously something's been done to generate a bit of oomph over there. The Nikkei, it continues to stay in this horrible pattern at this stage here. Still marginally bullish, but got to be careful, as I said before. If it breaks these lows here, well then it's maybe see a bigger correction. Nifty 50 for those followers, well, it's still one of my favorites in terms of, I say favorites, got to be careful. I think I said the term yesterday, just got to be careful in terms of, but it's in a decent trend here. Okay, it's pulled back for the last couple of days, might still turn around before the close of business today. Aussie 200 chopping not far away from these prior highs. Maybe if it gets back up, and it could get a break to the upside. Really depends on interest rates there, I think. S&Ps, well, we did see the upside yesterday. Just warning people against not shorting this market. I think it seems like if interest rates are going to sort of plateau out, and we might see some change of terms tomorrow, this could be really affected. So we are seeing it consolidate. You can see from it last week into this week, consolidating. Yep, a little bit better today, but yesterday. Well, I'd be patient on these, because I think with a lot of these equity markets, they could flatten a little. The one that's sort of just pushing its own way up there is the Dow is continuing. It still remains a short-term higher probability of continuation, I guess. Just looking pretty good. High lows, high highs. The only thing is, just with that other market I was pointing out, just watch out these high spiky, these constant retracements on the way up there. They're becoming more frequent. It had a decent clean move, then starting to get more frequent retracements. Might just slow it down. Okay, and finally, almost finally, Nasdaq, just quickly looking at that, still off a little bit here. Some of the markets, some of the reports not really favouring too much, but it's barely moving. I mean, yesterday flatlining almost. Talking of flatlining, one of the most ugly markets at the moment, if you're trying to trade this, is this DAX. Really over, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, well, 5 and a bit days, 5 and just started, or maybe even a bit more. It's just consolidating, and it looks pretty awful when you look at it on this hourly time frame. So short-term traders, beware. If you were maybe thinking it's got some chance on the bigger scope of things, possibly, but it's just hanging there. Now the FTSE, well, managed to push up yesterday, knocking on again today at the moment. We'll see how it goes. The sort of expectations around interest rates being not quite as high as was originally thought or forecast has helped it a little bit here, I'm sure. But it is looking more positive. Of course, oil stocks have a big play. With oil pushing up, I'm sure they're pushing up alongside. Anyway, there we go. That's it for today. I wish you a great day's trading, and I will catch you in the morning.